Logos, a 55-second masterpiece of logo action.
I used to think this was the beginning of your story.
Wait, we get narration and foreshadowing in the first line of the movie? This must be a prestige film. Luckily for Louise's grief wandering, there are no other staff or patients in this hospital, and the overhead lights are permanently set to twilight.
There are days that define your story beyond your life, like the day they arrived.
Louise plays the pronoun game with her newborn baby, so that her baby will instinctively hate the pronoun game later in life. Sure, these assholes could be grouped around the TV to watch Maury reveal who the father is, but Louise seriously doesn't give a cursory glance at the screen to see what almost everyone in the vicinity is gathering to watch?
Where is everyone?
The real question is, who are these fuckers who aren't plugged in enough to have at least some idea of what's going on? These are the few dedicated students that showed up to class, so you gotta think they're pretty engaged. So why the fuck do you keep your ringer on and answer that fucking phone after class begins? And she's in the middle of the second row.
Any news you want to share?
Dr. Banks, can you turn the TV to a news channel?
Ha! You can't fool me! This is just a different wording for you better take a look at this cliche. Denis Villeneuve chooses to focus the camera on Louise and her class as they watch the stunning news about the alien arrival, which is probably a great artistic choice, and it keeps the alien ships a mystery until the big reveal later. But what about my needs? Also, as if to punish her for interrupting class, Louise steps right in front of the student that asked to watch the TV.
Happening right now.
Most modern buildings include visual strobes in each room that go off with the auditory alarm system. So this school is either an accidental violation of the ADA or is a dick to the hearing impaired, or both. Also, either these students are the calmest kids ever in a disaster, or else everyone's incredibly high right now. This person is a dick to pulling out, which is probably why he has so many child support payments. Okay, we don't know for sure at which university Louise works, but it ain't f***ing Harvard. So how can she afford this sweet-ass modern lakefront house on a professor's salary?
Well, Mom, please don't bother with that channel. How many times do I have to tell you those people are idiots?
Jeez, Louise, if your mom wants to watch some CinemaSins, just let her have her fun.
Yeah, well, do I sound nervous?
Nope. In fact, Louise pretty much keeps up this monotone vibe for the entire film. Boy, this room sure does look neat and tidy for a room where everybody left in a hurry recently. Did the cleaning crew still come in while the rest of the world was caught up in an alien frenzy? Louise realizes if she hadn't brought that burnt casserole to the last faculty function, someone might have called her to let her know school's canceled.
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber.
When I pulled up to this empty campus, I thought, no way is she here today. But thank God I completely ignored my gut and my common sense and found you anyway. Also, no phone call, an email, a telex.
You are on the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations. And you have another 2 years in the SSBI.
Thanks for the expositional resume, Colonel.
So you still have top secret clearance. That's why I'm in your office, not at Berkeley.
Weber just said that Louise is at the top of the list, so isn't that why he's here talking to her? In fact, because he says this for basically no reason, she knows Weber's going to visit a rival translator, and she's got just the plan to make him look bad.
How many, speaking?
2.
God damn, if they took out even half the length of the pauses in conversation in this movie, Denis Villeneuve could have trimmed 20 minutes off this thing.
Are you sure? Did they have mouths?
So how would you approach translating this?
Look, I know Colonel Ghost Dog here is a military dude that's used to getting stuff done, but this line of questioning is total bullshit. Does he really think Louise is going to be able to translate if she doesn't know whether or not the aliens have f***ing mouths?
I can tell you that it's impossible to translate from an audio file. I would need to be there to interact with them.
You didn't need that with the Farsi translations.
Furthermore, this guy actually thinks an alien language can be translated from a couple of noises on a recording.
You mentioned Berkeley. Are you going to ask Danvers next?
Before you commit to him, ask him the Sanskrit word for war and its translation.
Whoa, does she just have one of these trick questions in her arsenal for every other contemporary linguist? Competitive much?
Gaveston. He says it means an argument. What do you say it means?
A desire for more cows.
Wait, what? How does this prove anything? Also, how does he know Louise had the correct translation? Did he Google it? And if so, why didn't the Berkeley professor Google it?
Pack your bags.
All right, give me 20 minutes.
We take off in 10.
God damn it, does Weber seriously not have a phone? She could have been ready before he got here. Man, Hawkeye and Lois Lane in the same movie? That beats my DC Marvel crossover fanfiction.
Language is the foundation of civilization. It is the first weapon drawn in a conflict.
Luis, this is Ian Donnelly.
Characters in this movie just spout off random diatribe instead of just first introducing themselves. You know what? This movie is an amazing feat. It doesn't get distracted by bullshit. It's a throwback to another era where it takes time to build a story. It says, I've got your sins right here, CinemaSins, and you can go f*** yourselves. I've got to admit, that's rude, but it's worth 3 sins off. Don't look at the giant alien egg. Don't look at the giant alien egg. Don't look at the... Damn it!
You're gonna take care of your bags? I'll take your cell phones.
You won't be needing your cell phones here because we communicate by showing up at your door unexpectedly.
We're just getting started.
Good morning.
I guess Forrest Whitaker's accent could be described as occasionally New Yawston.
Every 18 hours, the door opens up at the bottom. That's where we go in.
And I'm waiting to tell you this detail until we're literally standing underneath it. This moment, behold the power of show don't tell, kids. So good.
What happens now?
They arrive.
I mean, look, this is totally good enough for a roll credit sin. Weber could have said anything, like, they'll be here shortly, or go up and talk to them. But this they arrive response contains about the least amount of information he could give. Man, these heptapods sure do know how to make an entrance, huh? It's not like they couldn't already be there waiting for the humans, considering they know exactly what time they'll show up.
Dr. Banks, you can start.
Start f***ing what? I realize we're going to get a lot of scenes in this corridor, but this is a jarring-ass cut, when we could actually get to see what Lois' first move was.
Am I fired?
You're better than the last guy.
Wait, Weber specifically mentioned that Louise was at the top of the list for translating the aliens, so who the f*** was the last guy?
Violence continues to spread across the U.S. today in the wake of the 12 landings.
Man, this movie's never seen an expositional TV monitor that it doesn't want to shove down our throats. Trying written language with this board seems like a great idea, until someone needs to know which of the 6 oxygen tanks are full. Sorry guys, needed to get an ink pen. That's why I left. Yeah, I know it looks like I'm writing this using my creepy alien claw, but I assure you there's a pen there.
Trying to teach him how to speak and read? That's gotta take longer.
You're wrong. It's faster.
Well, since you put it like that, I guess it shuts Weber's argument totally down, with no supporting evidence. I mean, she's obviously right, but it's much more within Louise's character to explain what she actually means.
So you're gonna have to give me more than that.
Kangaroo.
Titmouse! I love playing this game.
And he asked what they were, and the Aborigine said kangaroo.
And the point is?
Was this whole conversation written with the idea that they needed to give Forrest Whitaker more lines? Because Louise always makes sure she confuses the shit out of Weber before getting to the point.
It's a good story.
It's not true.
But it proves my point.
If this approach works, then the entire success of this peaceful alien encounter rests on a statement that no one fact-checked. If one person on Weber's committee says, wait, that sounds like bullshit, then this whole thing spirals out of control.
Don't you see? They can't seem to follow our algebra.
The aliens are the equivalent of most U.S. high school sophomores.
Yeah, so that we can learn their names if they have names, and then introduce pronouns later.
We know why you want to introduce the pronouns, Dr. Banks. You're trying to get an intergalactic pronoun game started, aren't you?
These are all grade school words. Eat, walk. Help me understand.
Seriously, is Weber this f***ing dense? Does he want to start the conversation with the alien race with words like lugubrious or surreptitious or something?
So, first, we need to make sure that they understand what a question is.
If she had this explanation in her back pocket, then why did she ever go with the kangaroo story? I'm wondering, when this alien race writes books, do they have to stop writing when they run out of ink and wait until their bodies build up more? How many antelopes die for this alien culture's thriving book scene?
So what are we gonna call them?
I don't know.
I was thinking Abbott and Costello.
Isn't the whole point of this to learn what the alien's language means? So now Louise and Ian are just going to make up names for them instead of trying to figure out what their actual names are?
Here are some of the many things we don't know about heptapods.
Mid-movie, completely out of nowhere narration. This narration appears to break the fourth wall, and is so jarring it's like we are dropped into Planet Earth 3, not Planet Earth, with no warning.
Are they scientists or tourists? If they're scientists, they don't seem to ask a lot of questions.
How would Ian know if they did? Louise is still trying to figure out the language. Movie spends almost an hour with Human and Louise and Ian, and then just throws out all the words they've learned since, without actually showing us any of that progress.
Next, expanding vocabulary. Louise thinks it could easily take another month to be ready for that.
3 full minutes later, and we are finally finishing up the hardcore narration exposition. Seriously, I haven't been mid-movie exposition this hard since The Big Short.
I guess that's why I'm single.
Trust me, you can understand communication and still end up single.
Nerd flirting. Flirting?
When was your last checkup with Dr. Candler?
Is it just me, or is Forrest just a glorified babysitter for these two? He's basically everyone's nosy Grandma Mabel at this point. Explain this to me again, would you? Did you see the doctor? If he asks about the consistency of their bowel movements, I'm shifting my Sergeant Granny theory from plausible to confirmed.
Do you know Mandarin?
Wait a second, you're telling me that you don't have an on-site dedicated Mandarin expert? Later, we see what looks like translators for all the other languages and locations. So why do you need Banksy here for the Mandarin? Was there something more important going on where all the Mandarin speakers had to be? An Orange Festival? A lame Iron Man sequel?
Suits, honor, flowers. Colonel, those are all tile sets in Mahjong.
Jesus Christ, I know Louise is a f***ing all-knowing linguist and all, but she's also a vintage game expert?
God, are they using a game to converse with their heptapods?
And if they're playing Mahjong, they're also teaching the heptapods to become stereotypical retirees. Why is anyone still wearing these suits? If Ian and Louise have been running around in their underclothes for at least a month now with no ill effects, wouldn't you think for mobility and accuracy's sake you'd go ahead and let the others strip down too?
And it's quite possible that they're asking us to offer them something, not the other way around. It's like the first part of a trade.
So how do we clarify their intentions beyond those 2 words?
I mean, did she not ask any follow-ups while she was there? They say, offer weapon, and she immediately says, okay, take it easy. What the hell's Denmark doing here? The only site with a shell landing that's not represented here is Greenland. So movie's saying, Denmark is calling the shots for them? It's over 1,800 miles away.
We need to be talking to each other.
You want to talk to them, find out what this means.
But he just said...
It's more complicated than that.
When Louise asked to go back into the heptapod chamber to figure this out. Jesus, template asshole CIA plot mover can't even asshole consistently. So there are at least 4 of these morons in on the plan, and not one of them stopped to think about how stupid this idea was? Seriously, what's the best case scenario here? That somehow our paltry human explosive will detonate the entire ship, and then Independence Day style take out the other 11 as well? Up yours, movie. Also, Louise can't take a sheet of vocabulary words with her on the ship without Weber looking them over. But somehow these yahoos get a bomb through security and onto the ship. Also, doesn't everyone go back to camp together? So how did no one notice these assholes staying behind?
No. Dr. Banks, you can't go
We
in there.
just need to ask one question.
These motherfuckers are moving rather casually, considering they just set a big bomb to go off in 10 minutes right above where they are currently standing.
Marks, let him go.
But why? I understand these military dicks want to blow up the ship, but they seriously don't mind killing 2 civilians that are still incredibly useful to this operation. This look is called the Jeremy Renner.
Abbott wants me to ride on the barrier.
Can you even do that?
I don't know.
How does she know Abbott wants her to write on the barrier? He'd stuck his suction cup thing up on there, but he could just want her to give him a high five. Wait, how did they see the blast itself? The heptapods blew Louise and Ian out of there with their equipment, so there shouldn't be an inside view. Day 27. But didn't he say earlier in his info dump?
It's taken us a month to make the simplest reply.
And
Louise thinks it could easily take another month to be ready for that.
I mean, maybe they didn't quite get to another full month, but still. It was at least 3 or 4 days before they even got there, and it's been at least another week or 2 since that narration. If they took a month to even reply, we should be at least to day 41 or so.
In a televised statement, General Shang, chairman of the People's Liberation Army, said the aliens have 24 hours to leave Chinese territory or face destruction.
And Shang knows the aliens understand this ultimatum. How? I guess the people watching the monitors got bored with looking at these disconnected notifications and rearranged them into 2 rows, considering this was the previous arrangement. Even one of the most intelligent sci-fi films ever made can't resist a little zoom and enhance slap and tickle.
It's going to take us years.
Or they could just do another one of those sped-up montage thingies and have this figured out in less than 10 minutes.
But this says that all of the pieces fit together.
And I'm telling you that no one else cares.
Holy shit, the CIA guy is such an unrelenting dickhead, he may as well have been played by James Woods.
Non-zero sum game. That's it.
Actually, Hannah wanted to know what you called a competition where both sides ended up happy or win. In a non-zero-sum game, it's not required for both sides to win, because it would include negative-sum games. The correct answer would have been a positive-sum game.
Look, they're not our enemy. They've made no active aggression towards us.
That's a good point. They've been there for what, months? And nothing has happened that would make anyone think the aliens are evil, with the exception of some things they've communicated that could be and have easily been explained away.
Costello. Where's Abbott?
Good to know that even though this was a time-sensitive mission, Ian and Louise took the time to teach the aliens the names they gave them. Also, do they understand English now? Is she speaking telepathically, or were they pretending not to understand the whole time so that we could learn by teaching them? Seems like whatever the case, if they're beings who exist at once throughout all time and know English, there might have been a better way to teach this.
What is your purpose here?
Now they tell them. That would have been helpful the first time they were asked the question.
Who is this child?
The show is called Mommy and Daddy Talk to Animals.
God damn, this reveal just melted my brain and I'm temporarily unable to use lowercase text. One cent off while I cool down. You know what, guys? Subway is really going too far with their ads these days. Advanced alien race is not bound by time or space, and they can't clear a few electricity poles. More like heptaclods. Look, I understand that this movie is operating on some sort of self-consistency principle, and that time is not linear. All things that have happened and will happen are essentially set in stone. But is this movie really saying that because she saw the future book, that's how she solved the language, and then she wrote a book based on seeing the book she would one day write?
The time, it isn't the same for them. It's non-linear.
Look, we did our best, but it wasn't enough.
Weber suddenly turns into a disbelieving dick to deliver this line, even after witnessing Louise's solo trip inside the ship. I guess the CIA asshole is busy packing or something.
Your private number, General, I don't know your private number.
Now you know. I do not claim to know how your mind works.
Yet I just did something incredibly intuitive that becomes the movie's most convenient plot point.
I called you, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
But why is Louise surprised by this? If this is the actual future she's living in, she would know this is coming. We understand that our present Louise is just experiencing this, but she should be experiencing it as a future participant, in the same way that she has lived the other future moments. The movie does a good job of staying to a locked timeline theory of time dispersion, but slips up in this one moment of future ignorance. TLDR, wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Random sat phone is random and convenient, and without a secure entry system.
What do I say? What do I say?
I will never forget what you said.
I get that this is non-linear thinking as opposed to actual time travel, but still, this seems very convenient that she realized all of this now, as opposed to when they were, say, already on the helicopter headed out of here.
If you could see your whole life from start to finish, would you change things?
Man, Louise is really setting up Ian here. This is like a long con version of the Blame Game.
You know, I've had my head tilted up to the stars for as long as I can remember. You know what surprised me the most? It wasn't meeting them. It was meeting you.
Even after hearing this cheesy line, Louise still eventually wants to fuck Ian.
You like it hot, Gordy, don't you? I'm cutting your head. I'm cutting your head.
Okay, look, the city's flying. We're fighting an army of robots. And I have a bow and arrow. None of this makes sense.
What happens now? Where am I going to?